Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how Nigel Farage has been peddling his nonsense on the television again. Have to say, he didn't seem to like it when people challenge him about it. Too used to being allowed to say whatever he wants for too many years. But I'm also going to say he's not been challenged as robustly as he should be. So I guess I'm going to have to point out what was missed out. But first, for daily political commentary, please click the subscribe button so you don't miss out. So Farage decided to pop along to the GMB show to face Susanna Reid and Ed Balls. There are, of course, plenty of interviewers out there who will give Nigel Farage a very easy ride, as they have done for over a decade now. Reid and Balls not two of them, though I have to say I wish it was someone who was more robust, because they just let him get away with far too much still. You know, I was listening to several minutes of this. There's quite a long interview, I suppose, in many ways, but I was listening to several minutes of it, particularly on linking immigration to the NHS, and I thought, it's so easy to call him out. Do it more often. You know, get him in front of Victoria Derbyshire, maybe, I don't know. But he opened up by saying that most people coming to this country are on low wages and pay relatively little in tax. Now, it's worth just pointing out here that Nigel Farage is instantly therefore attacking the idea of not paying much tax. Yet he and all of his mates have, or had in the past, special arrangements with their finances designed to specifically avoid paying UK tax. So is he arguing that anyone with tax avoiding offshore finances shouldn't be welcome in the UK? I suspect he's not arguing this, but he wasn't asked. But anyway, he said that they are not, regarding immigrants, not overall benefiting the country financially specifically. Now, in actual fact, they are. Whenever there is any analysis done on immigration, it always concludes that immigrants pay more into the system than they take out. In fact, there was a recent Home Office analysis of the Tories' knee-jerk policies, James Cleverly's knee-jerk policies from last year, where he pulled a couple of levers to try and reduce immigration, including, for example, making it harder for foreign students to come to British universities. And this analysis has concluded, surprise, surprise, that there is a net cost to the Treasury, not a gain, of doing this. Labour are still persisting with the policy, mind you, because of some political bullshit. And in this case, the net cost is not very high, so they'll get away with it. But it's still a net cost. It's always a net cost. You know, every policy that this country has ever adopted in pursuit of lowering immigration has always resulted in a net loss financially, with Farage's precious Brexit being chief amongst them. Now, although Reid did challenge Farage on the fact that he seemed to be suggesting that those on low wages should pay higher taxes, something Farage refused to answer multiple times when put to him, I will say that she also could have pointed out that migrant workers, including those on low wages, actually do pay more taxes. They pay an additional tax specifically for access to the NHS. So an immigrant worker on the same wages as a British worker pays more towards the NHS. Farage also said that we've seen that as the population has increased, living standards have gone down. No, we haven't. We've seen that we have Conservative governments, living standards have gone down. They went up under the last Labour government, even as the population was increasing. In fact, according to people like Farage, Blair opened the floodgates on immigration, but our living standards went up. He also used the term exploding population, when our population has done no such thing. As Farage once again tried to tie immigration to access to the NHS, Susanna Reid noted, well, 20% of our NHS comes from overseas. And Farage said, isn't that awful? And you're thinking, well, no, because that's a higher percentage than the number of people living in the UK from overseas. Meaning if we didn't have immigration, we'd have even fewer doctors per head of population than we do now. And that's a simple look at it. If you also realise then that the majority of people who need the NHS are very young or very old, then the percentage of people who are very young or very old who were born overseas is even smaller. So we'd be in real trouble. I mean, have fun getting an appointment then. And throughout the interview, what was interesting was that Farage refused to blame immigrants at any stage. I did find that interesting. He even tried to argue that his policies would be helping others around the world. You know, oh, we keep taking these doctors from poor African countries, he said, without naming any, I noticed. And Reid said, well, are you now trying to claim that you're acting in the interests of foreign countries in Africa now? He didn't answer that either. Then Ed Balls, he jumped in and he asked, well, what, for example, would Farage do about social care, given that our system depends upon migrant workers and would utterly collapse without them? In fact, it's worth pointing out, We have massive shortages in social care, just like healthcare. So we are utterly dependent on migrant workers in social care, but it's not even like we're filling those positions now. We've got a huge vacancies. And Farage immediately jumped on this idea that there's this huge pool of working age people in Britain who aren't working. And it's like, well, we've got about 130,000 vacancies in social care right now. That's with migrant workers doing jobs in social care. There's still 130,000 jobs going spare, right? Where are they then? Because let's just remind ourselves of what happened the last time this was put to the test. When British farmers suddenly lost access to lots of seasonal workers from Europe, there was a call for British workers to fill those roles. The results? Lots of crops rotting in the fields. This is because we don't actually have this huge glut of workers for these jobs. You know, the people Nigel Farage refers to, those people of working age who are not working, in a lot of cases, do you know why it is? It's because they retired early, they've got plenty of money, or they've retired due to ill health. You know, they're mostly people in their 50s and 60s. You ain't going to get those breaking their backs picking cabbages all day, or the long, arduous hours for bollocks pay in social care. And people like Farage do this all the time. You know, there are British people who could do these jobs, they say. Okay, where are they then? Because we've got the vacancies right now. So then what he said, because he knows this, he said, well, the problem is they're not paid well enough. Okay, right. So your plan is to ramp up wages until it suddenly attracts all these people, these executives who retired early and they're on the golf course. You're going to raise the pay to the point where they go, oh, I think I'll go and work in social care for 10 years. He also then tried the old dodge of people on benefits being better off staying on benefits than working. So what he's trying to do, he's trying to move away from the real reasons why you've got working age people who aren't working. And he tried to link it to people, you know, being on unemployment benefits, choosing not to do these jobs because it doesn't pay well enough. It's like, well, apart from the fact you can't just choose not to work if you're on unemployment benefits, this is a nonsense in most parts of the country. Like, I appreciate there are parts of the country, particularly around the southeast, around some cities, where there is a huge cost of living and actually minimum wage is absolutely crap. But, you know, around like places where I've spent all my life, full-time work on a minimum wage, I mean, it's not great. But you can live on it and it is way better than benefits, way better. And yet we have shortages in social care just like anywhere else around here. But I also note that Farage ended up saying we need to find a radical way to get British people doing these jobs. So he said these jobs don't pay well enough, but there's a load of people to do them, which there isn't, by the way. You know, there are way more jobs than British people of working age, right? Which also should have been called out. But here's the main point I would make. For years, Farage has been saying he's got a better way. I've got a better way if only I was in charge. Absolutely years, over a decade. So you would assume he's had the time to work out a detailed solution by now, wouldn't you? But when he's asked how he would solve the problem, no answer. You know, Ed Balls asked him, where was the answer? He claims there are British workers to these jobs. He claims that pay is the issue. So explain how you're going to raise the pay to get these British people to do these jobs. Because you can start without cutting immigration, because the jobs are already there. There's 130,000 vacancies. Test it out before you do anything. Come up with an idea to raise the pay to attract British workers that you say exist into those jobs. But he doesn't actually say how he's going to match those things up. What we had here was the skill and the weakness of Farage. I think the skill is he knows that all he has to do is point at things that people will readily believe and they go along with his thinking, as long as no one points out that the emperor has no clothes. Because the weakness is the emperor has no clothes. He has no answers. And although Reed and Balls did challenge him, you know, they didn't let him get away with absolute rubbish, and many interviewers absolutely just let him say whatever, they didn't really get to the heart of those weaknesses. What they didn't point out was that immigrants pay more towards the NHS than equivalent British workers on the same income. Why didn't they point out that the number of jobs in this country is more than the number of people, British citizens of working age? Why didn't they point out that he's had years of claiming he has the answers? So where are they? You know, he can't just wave his arm around. Oh, radical solution. That's what we need. What is it? Explain what it is. If it's to massively boost the pay of social care workers, how much are you going to boost it to? Where's your research to say that that will do the trick? And how are you going to pay for it? Are people in social care going to have to pay double cost to pay for it? Or are you going to put up taxes on working people to pay for those needing the social care? What would his wrinkly followers think about having to double the cost of their social care, for example? And since Farage announced his candidacy for the election earlier this year, it is fair to say he's faced more scrutiny in the media than at any time in the past. But it's still not enough, is it? It's not consistent enough. I don't know whether it's because, you know, the people facing him are just not doing their jobs properly, that they're not doing their research properly, or they just don't think they need to hammer the leader of a small party, because, well, he's only a leader of a small party, as much of a big one. I mean, if so, I would say Nigel Farage is one of the most influential politicians of this country in the past decade. He should be treated seriously and challenged seriously. We can't even excuse it on the grounds of, well, the media give right-wing gobshites an easy ride all the time. It's like neither Reid nor Balls have a history of that, and Ed Balls was a Labour minister, for goodness sake. And Farage is a material threat to the Conservatives more than Labour anyway. You know, it's good that Farage is having some people finally say, no, you can't just say that. But for goodness sake, do it better. They'd even get more clicks. You know, if they actually really put Farage under the cosh and had him properly melted down, they would get more clicks. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, you can join for memberships. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.